Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Turgeon, and I am the Vice President of Development at JRS USA. Before we begin our formal program, I wanted to extend our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to Lidia Bastianich for inviting us into Becco this evening for our 45th anniversary. Thank you so much, Lidia. And thank you to all of you for continuing to walk with JRS after not only just tonight, but after a very challenging and difficult year. You continue to support us, and your generosity and support is deeply meaningful to us. So thank you. I have the distinct honor of introducing a very fine gentleman who will lead us in our opening prayer this evening. He has been a faithful, tireless companion to Kelly Ryan and me over the last several days as we embarked on what I would refer to as a mini cross-country odyssey from Los Angeles to Orange County, Denver, and now to New York City. His intelligence, compassion, and wit made it not only a joyous journey, but an incredibly fruitful and productive one. And we're a fun couple to travel with, but we're not always easy. So please join me in welcoming, to lead us in our opening prayer, a tireless traveler, storyteller, and fundraiser, and Regional Director of JRS Asia Pacific, Father Joe Hansen.
Yeah, Mike, you're up. Get under the lights, Joe.
If this were not daunting enough, technology has let me down, and many hours of effort spent preparing this opening prayer have turned to dust. So we'll have a spontaneous prayer to start, and that means it's a little shorter. Microphone. People always complain about it.
Bend it down to your mouth.
Just bend it.
Like that.
Okay, is that better?
Much better.
And I see a lot of white hair, so obviously the volume needs to be turned up a little bit more. So I've been asked to pray, so let us put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God our Father, we thank you for drawing us here together this evening. We ask that you look upon all of us here. We ask that we celebrate the fact that JRS is 45 years old. We celebrate all the people that you've called to work with JRS. We remember their work, their sacrifice. We remember those who died in the line of duty. We remember also all the great refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants who've offered us companionship and accompaniment as we travel with them. We stand in admiration of their resilience and their strength as they inspire their fellow travelers, their families and communities. We ask, Lord, that you look upon them and give them your strength and your consolation. We also remember today Saint Francis Xavier Cabrini, I believe the first American saint. We ask for her intercession. She was devoted to the cause of migrants and those in need. We ask on her blessing for the work that we do. We ask that we open our hearts so that we can be better agents of God's will. We ask that you open our eyes to the world that refugees see, a world of suffering, neglect. We ask that you open our hands, strengthen our hands, so that we can offer a hand of fellowship and welcome, so that we are not, so that we become more sensitive, and that we don't lapse into an insensitiveness that comes from selfishness and worldly comfort. We ask that you guide us, give us your love that we can pass on to others. Give us a heart of service so that all of us, refugees, migrants, and those who work with them, can become men and women for others. We ask all this through Christ the Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
If I could have your attention, we have a couple more comments to make, and then, but please feel free to start your dinner. I want to wish a formal welcome to everyone here. This is our 45th anniversary celebration for the founding of Jesuit Refugee Services. My name is Bob Meehouse, and I have the privilege of serving as chair of the JRS USA board. Thank you for joining us tonight. I know we are all looking forward to hearing from our honoree. Sorry. We're all looking forward to hearing from our honoree, United Nations Secretary General António Guterres, tonight. But first, I'd like to welcome a couple of special guests who have joined us as well. His Excellency Archbishop Gabriel Giordano Caccia, who's the Apostolic Nuncio and permanent observer of the Holy See of the United Nations, and Bishop DiMarzio, the former Archbishop of Baltimore. And we just had our blessing from Jesuit Father Joe Hampson, who's joined us from Thailand, where he serves as JRS Asia Pacific Regional Director. Father Ken Gavin, SJ, former JRS USA National Director and Deputy International Director, and former Secretary of the Treasury Robert Rubin is with us tonight as well. I also want to recognize our sponsors. Thank you to our accompaniment corporate sponsors, JCM Grosvenor and the Al Smith Memorial Foundation. Thank you also to our Hope corporate sponsors, Crowell and Mooring and Van Zeeland Manufacturing. And special thanks to Mariotis, Lisa Zank, and Phil Anglima for securing these sponsorships on JRS's behalf. And to all of our sponsors, I want to offer a really sincere thank you. Your generosity and unwavering commitment to our mission has helped us endure a very challenging year, and that's an understatement. 45 years ago, JRS was born from a simple yet powerful conviction that no one fleeing persecution should be forgotten, and that every person who is forced into flight deserves to be seen, accompanied, and given hope. Tonight we gather as a community that still believes in that promise, and we approach the end of a year that has tested all of us in extraordinary ways. Despite unprecedented and very abrupt withdrawals of funding and support for international humanitarian assistance, JRS has remained true to its mission and stayed the course. We did not turn away from those with whom we accompany. While other humanitarian organizations that are reliant solely on government funds closed their programs almost overnight, thanks to our donors, the fact that we have a fairly healthy reserve fund, and those of the Xavier Network, we were able to keep programs in 22 countries going, I'll bet on a smaller scale. We made tough strategic decisions that have strengthened us as an organization and given us a renewed sense of purpose and vision. And we continue to walk beside refugees and other displaced persons in 57 countries across 8 regions. This work was only made possible because every person in this room walked with us. On behalf of the entire JRS board, leadership, and staff, thank you for helping us to remain present with our brothers and sisters and for believing that hope is still worth investing in. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce someone who embodies not only the spirit of warm hospitality and big-heartedness, but is the model of what a refugee admitted to this country can accomplish. A beloved member of the JRS USA board, a world-renowned chef, storyteller, refugee, and humanitarian, Lidia Bastianich.
My goodness. Thank you. Welcome. Such an honor to have Secretary General Cassio, Father Leo, how are you doing? I must say that I've been a friend of the Jesuits. They've been my friend, actually, ever since I came to the United States. But let me tell you a little bit about my story. I was born in Istria. Istria is now part of Croatia, but if you look at Italy, Italy has 20 regions. In the right-hand side is Friuli, Venezia Giulia. And right on the border, over the border now, is Istria, which is part of Croatia. That was Italy. That was all Italy. And when I was born, it was right on the cusp of the finishing of the war. The war finished, Italy lost, and that area, by the Paris Treaty of 1947, was given to the newly formed communist Yugoslavia. So under communism, once communism came in, things changed. We couldn't practice our religion, speak our language, and everything had changed for us. I was just about born about that time, and sort of I grew up under those conditions at home, and always kind of quietly speaking Italian. Grandma would take me to church now and then. My mother was an elementary school teacher, and hence she couldn't behave. She had to listen to the dogma of the regime. Now you have to understand, when you come from a border, be it the border that I come from, you speak more than one language. So, for us to translate from one language to another, even though I speak with my mother Italian, we speak 2 or 3 languages. That area was also under the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So it has that influence also. And those of you that watch me cook know that I make strudel, I make spätzle. And when I cooked for Father Pope Benedict, when he was here, I made spätzles for him. And I cooked for Pope Francis too when he was here. So a great honor, my commitment. But my parents at that time decided that maybe they had to move on, because how can you raise the children without the values that they were raised on? And we had relatives on the other side of the border, because the border went down, and who was on this side and who was on that side. So they wouldn't let the whole family, but my mother, my brother, and I went to visit an aunt. My father had to remain because they did not give him a visa to go. And I was young. I was 10 at the time. Excited about traveling, going to Italy, and the raising in under communism, I attribute my passion for food, for family, to my grandmother, because given those conditions, my mother put my brother and myself with grandma in a little country town, and that's where she raised the food, the animals, to feed the family. And I was involved in that. And I think that's at the basis of my understanding and appreciation of food and sharing of food, and having not food. So we went to Trieste, and after 2 weeks, in the middle of the night, the door kind of knocks. My mother was crying, my aunt was crying. There was my father. He had fallen to the floor. He was all muddy. He had escaped because he couldn't. So the only choice was to escape. He made it. He was shot at. He was chased by the dogs. But we were all together now as a family. And being there, he had no papers. And if they caught you, that's right on the border, they would repatriate you if you didn't have the papers or whatever. So my parents decided to claim for asylum. We went to the police, and we were put in a refugee camp, San Saba. For those of you that go to Trieste, San Saba now is a museum. Prior to being a refugee camp for people fleeing communism, was also a Nazi holding camp. So it was a dark place to be. But there we were. I was 10 years old. My brother was 14. And the family of 4, we entered. We were given shelter and accepted into the camp. The camp there had different people from Eastern Europe all over. They were all escaping, and the closest free border was the Italian border there. So there were many different languages spoken, and we were sleeping all in one, just like you see the camp and you hear the camp, sleeping hall, kind of divided by boards, by curtains and whatever, a communal dining room downstairs. I had my little plate, and I would go online, like the family, to get my food. And I remember that day after day, spaghetti tomato sauce, and I would get an apple and a formaggino. Formaggino is like the laughing cow, and that was a special treat. So that was the food So we spent 2 years. The Catholic Relief Services, I think, undertook the task of taking care of people, the refugees of the war in Europe. After 2 years, we applied, of course, which country would take us. Australia was one of them, Argentina was one of them, Canada, but we were lucky enough to be accepted by the United States. But, absolutely. Dwight Eisenhower was the president at the time, and he opened the immigration for people fleeing communism. We had nobody here. The Catholic Relief Services took care of us once we got here. I remember we came at JFK, a yellow bus, now I know it's a school bus, but I didn't know, took us into the city and put us in a hotel. Not unlike what's happening today. We had this little, it's really, so when I see what's happening out there, I can relate so much to what's going on and how we can, certainly I could help in any way that I can to make those people maybe feel more at home, feel accepted, and start a new life. Because that opportunity that my family was given. Now, my father was a mechanic. He had a little truck business. My mother was a teacher, and my brother and I, we were students. The Catholic Charities found a home for us, found a job for my father, and would subsidize us, not unlike today, until my father began to work. We would go once a week first to the agency to talk to the social workers, then once a month, and then ultimately we were on our own. But I certainly can never forget the opportunity that we were given, and certainly I can say with wholeheartedly that there is no place like America. America is now, being born Italian, great culture, and then being adopted American, I have 2 of the greatest cultures on this world with me. So my commitment to JRS is the Jesuits, because they taught they grew my children with me. I told them I have 2 children. And I was opening a restaurant. Some of you were involved, I heard, in restaurants. It's you leave in the morning, 10, 11, you come back at midnight, and so on. I was lucky enough that I had my mother. We lived in the Italian style. My mother and my father lived with us. They had their own little apartment, but they lived with us. They helped me raise my children. But I needed help because for the spiritual, for the human element for my children. I wanted them, and of course I put them in the hands of the Jesuits. From Regis, Fordham Prep, Fordham University, Boston University, Georgetown, all the way. My kids, and I always thank the Jesuits for helping me to raise my children, because my children are two wonderful children, and now in turn I have 5 grandchildren. So here I am with all my heart supporting this, and I'm so glad that you are all here. And I feel a great sense of enthusiasm and wanting to be here and wanting to participate. But let me tell you, I don't think there's ever more a needy time, if you will, for all of our participation and support for the people that need it out there all over the world. So thank you for being here. Enjoy. Pardon the service, but for the sake of moving it on, we don't want you to hang around too long. So, I mean literally because of you, not because of me. But I told them to serve, so we'll continue talking about that. So the menu is a rather simple menu. This is Becco. This is one of actually my son's, the first restaurant that I opened with my son, that we opened together, and it's here more than 30 years, and it's in the theater district in Whitepeas. And we're known for our pasta trio. What we do here, besides the regular menu, is that we have 3 pastas of the day, and they go around with the pot, and they serve. If you chose that, they serve you the pasta. Tonight you will have, in the same fashion, 2 pastas. So first you have the Caesar salad, you have calamari fritti. Please make sure you eat them. You have a little bit of prosciutto and salami. Then you're going to have the Sinfonia di Pasta, which is an Italian-American dish, manicotti, and a very Italian dish, gnocchi con ragù di anitra, duck sauce. That was one of the favorite dishes that I ate as a child. Grandma had, chickens, ducks, we had pigs, we had everything. So Sunday when it was special, we made gnocchi, we got involved, and we made it with duck sauce. So I thought I'd share that with you. And then family style, you're going to get on your table, they're going to put platters of chicken breast in a lemon sauce or spinach, salmon with, roasted salmon with Brussels, and beef steak sliced on top of hanger steak with vegetables, polenta, and so on. So those 3 will come in the middle. You'll eat family style because this is family. You are like family. You have entered the Jesuit family now, and you're committed. And we treat you like family. So thank you very much. The wine that you're drinking are also all our production. And those are some of the vineyards in Friuli. We have a vineyard, the first wine, which is the Friulano, is from Friuli. Friulano is a Tokai. Tokai was called before, but with Hungary reclaimed the regionality of the geographical area of Tokai. They make their own Tokai, so we had to change our name in Friuli, and we called it Friulano. I hope you enjoy. The red one is a super Tuscan, in a sense Aragone, and that's from Tuscany, from Maremma, and it has Shiraz, Sangiovese, Alicante, and Carignano in the Aragone, because the Spaniards occupied that area at one time, and so we kind of chose that name to carry on the history, if you will. So, buon appetito, enjoy, grazie mille, and I say one more thing. You're going to get a little gift. Those of you that are sort of worried, well, can I cook this? Can I do this? You're getting my latest book. Andy, right? Yeah. And something else too. We planned something else. So you're going home and you're going to cook like Lidia.
Good evening, and thank you all for joining us tonight. And thank you to Lidia, who is an amazing hostess. It's my pleasure to be with you to celebrate. Yes. It's my pleasure to be with you to celebrate our 45th anniversary of Jesuit Refugee Service. And it is my distinct honor to introduce United Nations Secretary General António Guterres. This year has certainly been full of great challenge and instability, but it also presents significant opportunities for JRS to serve, advocate, and accompany with and for refugees and displaced persons. For JRS USA, when the U.S. government funds were abruptly terminated in January, in light of our mission and our accompaniment model, we chose not to close our programs. Thanks to our board and to our generous loyal donors, some of whom are here tonight, we doubled down, making very difficult cuts to our programs and to our staff size. We chose to continue to partner with our international, regional, and country offices around the globe, including the Xavier Network, who also greatly supported JRS. There are many reasons for our decision to remain steadfast in our commitment and action, but I think our faith is number one. Last month, I had the privilege of joining the leadership of JRS International Office and my fellow regional directors during a meeting in Lebanon with Father Johansson. There we had the opportunity to visit our JRS Lebanon country office programs. Bombs fell close to our Jesuit retreat meeting site, and drones flew out of sight but buzzed above us loudly while in Beirut. Our program served Syrian refugees as well as migrants in crisis, including our own Lebanese and Syrian JRS staff members, many of whom were displaced by the bombings in Lebanon following the terrible events of September 2024. As the Church has done for centuries, JRS Lebanon opened the doors of St. Joseph Jesuit Church. Those fleeing the bombs, including JRS staff, were able to stay in safety and shelter. Now, each JRS country office operates in the context appropriate for the culture and circumstances faced by the population whom we serve and the community that they are in. In most of our country offices, the leadership and the staff are either from the community or are refugees themselves, having rich local knowledge and networks. We don't see ourselves as an international NGO parachuting in. Rather, we are embedded in the community providing locally based responses. This is, in my opinion, exactly what I think the grand bargain adopted at the Global Humanitarian Summit hoped to accomplish. In the context of Lebanon, the Jesuit presence is not new. They came in 1656 at the invitation of the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, who ruled over what is now Lebanon and Syria. As JRS, we've been present for the past 14 years. But all humanitarians hope that their mission will be made obsolete and that refugees and forcibly displaced persons in hosting communities will thrive independently. But the Jesuits intend to remain for the next 350 years in Lebanon as they serve with cura personalis, or treating people as individuals and honoring their unique worth. They care for the whole person, including physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual health, and take into account backgrounds, including the family life, nationality, and culture of those they assume. All of us know the creation of the United Nations was predicated on ensuring that the scourge of two world wars would never be repeated, and on the expressed desire to ensure peace and security. We've not yet achieved those lofty goals. Armed conflict, poverty, and violence tragically continue. The UN can and does, however, play a highly significant and irreplaceable global role, especially by creating international treaties, including the Refugee and Torture Conventions and the UN Protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons. When the Secretary General met Pope Francis, he noted the core values of the United Nations Charter are very much in conformity with the teachings of the Catholic Church, namely to reaffirm the dignity and worth of the human person, to uphold our common humanity, and protect our common home. That is no accident, since along with First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and other peoples of good faith, the theologian and Lebanese diplomat Charles Malik served as a principal drafter of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. His son Habib proudly points out, quote, in the 1940s, during the deliberation of the UN Human Rights Commission that produced the Universal Declaration, Malik, in the spirit of Catholic concepts of subsidiarity, stressed the centrality of immediate institutions, family, church, school, association, circle of friends, which helped cushion the individual against the pressures from the state. He also brought to those debates his grounding in Aquinas' teachings on natural law and a focus on the inherent dignity of each person, reflected in the preamble, Articles 16 and 18, all of which he authored. There's a lesson to be learned from Malek's diplomatic career. To me, that lesson is that Catholic social teaching should be the foundation of our work rather than ancillary to it. Our bishops, even this week, have yet again issued a powerful call to welcome the strangers. I first met the Secretary General when he, like all senior candidates for UN roles, paid a call in the State Department to seek U.S. support for his candidacy as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. My bureau was responsible for relationships with several UN agencies. The Secretary General had already secured the strong support of former President Clinton and was seeking Bush administration support. I have never seen a candidate so prepared, so thoughtful, and so willing to listen. He secured President Bush's support, and in 2005, António Guterres was elected by the United Nations General Assembly to become the 10th High Commissioner for Refugees, serving for a decade until the end of 2015. Before joining UNHCR, he'd spent more than 20 years in government and public service, serving as Prime Minister of Portugal between 1995 and 2002. He also founded the Portuguese Refugee Council. During his UNHCR tenure, High Commissioner Guterres oversaw profound structural reforms. He also championed the role of faith-based organizations, since he well understood that their deeply held religious beliefs called them to serve others regardless of who they were. His great success at UNHCR propelled him further at the UN, and he was appointed by the General Assembly as the 9th Secretary General of the United Nations. As Secretary General, he's led structural reforms and is tireless in his advancement to advance peace and security. When congratulating Pope Leo on his election, the Secretary General wrote, "Our world is in need of the strongest voices for peace, social justice, human dignity, and compassion. Please allow me to introduce another such powerful voice for peace, justice, and human dignity and compassion, Secretary General António Guterres."
Dear friends, all protocol observed, I'm very pleased to join you this evening and help commemorate this milestone. For 45 years, the Jesuit Refugee Service has been coming to the aid of people uprooted by conflict and persecution, accompanying them in their suffering, providing them with vital services, advocating for their dignity and rights. This work is much more than an act of charity. It is an expression of humanity. JRS was formed in response to the boat crisis in Southeast Asia, offering hope to people fleeing persecution and crushing poverty. And for 4.5 decades, you have delivered. Across the world, you have helped hundreds of thousands of refugees and internally displaced people access education, mental health, care, and other critical services. And here in the United States, you have been a compelling advocate on border issues and the rights of refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants, including those in detention. Your inspiring principles have deep roots. Compassion for the oppressed and marginalized has been a Jesuit precept for nearly 500 years, going back to Saints Ignatius Loyola and Francis Xavier. One of my cherished moments as High Commissioner for Refugees was meeting Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pontiff who ministered to refugees and called public attention to the dangerous journeys so many people take in search of safety. But our world keeps turning its back on those in distress. Allow me then to address 3 pressing concerns. First, mounting humanitarian needs. 9 years ago, when I concluded my tenure as High Commissioner, 65 million women, children and men were fleeing conflict or persecution. It was a staggering number at the time, but the crisis kept piling up. in Myanmar, Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, DRC, and beyond. Today, this figure stands at about 117 million, 1 in every 70 people on Earth. The sum total of the outrage and suffering is beyond comprehension. In Sudan, nearly 12 million people have been displaced inside the country and across borders, including countless women and girls raped as they fled. Reports of recent atrocities in Al-Fasher shock the conscience, not only for their scale and severity, but because the world saw it coming and did so little to stop it. In Gaza, most of the population has been displaced multiple times, humanitarian access has often been hindered, and healthcare infrastructure has been decimated. In Myanmar, discrimination and instability continue to impede the possibility of safe, voluntary, dignified and sustainable return for the 1.2 million stateless Rohingya refugees generously hosted in Bangladesh. In Ukraine, the full-scale war has caused untold destruction and displaced over 9.5 million people inside and outside the country. And in Eastern Congo and Haiti, conflict and violence continue to drive people from their homes. In too many places, human rights are being violated, humanitarian assistance is being denied, and human lives are being lost. Reversing these trends requires respect for the UN Charter, stronger multilateral cooperation, and more meaningful negotiation. Second, respect for international refugee law. The right to seek asylum and the moral obligation to protect people fleeing danger are enshrined in sacred texts and religions across the world. After the Second World War, the international community echoed these tenets in the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol. These treaties have spelled the difference between life or death for millions. But these instruments and their principles are increasingly questioned. The truth is, most refugees stay in neighboring countries, hoping to return home as soon as conditions allow. But when international support falters and local solutions erode, it compels the most desperate to move on, often entrusting their lives to smugglers and traffickers to cross deserts, jungles, and seas. The growing scale, scope, and complexity of these movements, with refugees and migrants traveling the same routes and facing many of the same dangers, strains border management and asylum systems. But the answer is not to push aside the Refugee Convention. States have the right to control their borders, but they also have a duty to protect those fleeing for their lives and to never send people back into danger. These principles are fully compatible as long as they are followed in good faith. We must safeguard the integrity of the refugee protection regime, working with states and other actors to ensure it is applied in a way that meets the challenges of our time. We must reaffirm that the Refugee Convention and its protocol are the cornerstone of international refugee law and are as necessary today as several decades ago. And we must ensure that asylum continues to save lives, as it currently does in places like Uganda, Chad, Moldova, and Bangladesh. Third, restoring humanitarian support. The humanitarian system is overstretched, underfunded, and under attack. Despite mounting needs, funding is in free fall, plunging roughly 50% from its peak 3 years ago. The unprecedented drop hinders our ability to protect refugees and provide life-saving assistance. It has forced UNHCR to close offices, cut more than a quarter of its staff, and cancel vital programs. A domino effect is hitting our humanitarian partners, including local refugee-led and faith-based organizations, which are often the first to respond to crises and among the most trusted. And it is taking a toll on vulnerable refugee and host communities. Families who lost everything when they fled their homes now face a second crisis, losing the support they rely on to survive. Humanitarian teams are having to hyper-prioritize, focusing on those at greatest risk while hoping others with marginally less urgent needs can somehow make do. This brutal but necessary triage means up to 11.6 million people may lose access to direct assistance from UNHCR. In a world that spends so freely on war, they deserve much better. Strategic and sustained investments in refugees and their hosts, including development assistance, pay real and valuable dividends. They bring stability by enabling people to thrive where they are. Enhance regional security by preventing conflicts from spreading. Lift up host communities and prepare refugees to return and rebuild their countries when the time is right, like the 1 million Syrian refugees who have returned home in the past year. With more international solidarity, we can help make these returns sustainable. Even as it struggles with funding shortfalls, the humanitarian sector is under attack on multiple other fronts. We see campaigns to discredit, disrupt, and disable its operations. Attempts to deliver aid outside the humanitarian system that betray its fundamental principles, and the targeting, kidnapping, and killing of humanitarian workers. All these must stop. Aid must never be weaponized, and those who deliver it must never be demonized. Dear friends, giving refuge to people in peril is more than a tradition. It's a moral and practical necessity. Let's work together to uphold the right to seek asylum, a pillar of international law. Insist on the shared responsibility to provide international protection. Strengthen refugee inclusion through enhanced funding for host communities. Expand durable solutions, including refugee resettlement, and summon the political will to resolve conflicts. Once again, I congratulate the Jesuit Refugee Service on accompanying people in need for 45 years. And I commend the example you set by welcoming the stranger with compassion and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General, for your remarks and your leadership. You are a global leader and you've been received many awards and honors. We would like to add our deep thanks and present a gift from JRS USA. In doing so, I'd like to highlight one aspect of the Secretary General's leadership: his recognition of the powerful and unique role of faith-based organizations in humanitarian response. He made this theme a priority when leading UNHCR. In 2012, he gave an important address which rings just as true today, noting, quote, faith-based organizations and local religious institutions can help create and strengthen welcoming communities for refugees and other persons of concern to UNHCR. In anxious times such as the one we're living in today, foreigners and migrants face negative attitudes in many places around the world, which diminishes the protection space available to refugees and asylum seekers. Racism, xenophobia, and religious intolerance undermine the universal values of tolerance and respect for human dignity. Faith-based organizations and religious leaders can play an immensely positive role in countering such sentiments and building tolerant and inclusive communities based on the common values of caring for the stranger. The Secretary General added, faith-based organizations have an important role to play in promoting reconciliation and peaceful coexistence in the country of origin after a conflict, during refugee stay in exile, and upon the return of the displaced, facilitating the reintegration into their home communities. We are deeply grateful that the Secretary General has recognized the role that JRS and other faith-based organizations play. The trust that faith-based NGOs enjoy makes them highly effective. It's also true that those working in faith-based organizations view their job as a mission, not a paycheck, and carry out their work because of their deeply held religious beliefs. In many cases, faith-based organizations are trusted because of who they are when governments and UN officials are held at local distance. Finally, the Secretary General declared, "We've been working for decades with faith-based humanitarian organizations, some of which are much older than UNHCR. Local religious communities and faith leaders play a central role in most humanitarian crises in which we operate." Tonight, we at JRS would like to offer the Secretary General a beautiful visual reminder of the call to welcome the stranger. This piece, sculpted by Timothy Smaltz, is entitled Angels Unawares, from the passage in Hebrews 13:2. Quote, "In hospitality do not forget, for by this some, being not aware of it, have entertained angels." We offer it with our deep thanks and appreciation. Thank you, Secretary General.
Well, good evening, friends. And Mr. Secretary General, thank you for reminding us of what humanity is. We couldn't have done without you, and we can't do without you in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And to our host, Lidia Bastianich, it is my pleasure to be with you in the celebration of the 45th anniversary of the Jesuit Refugee Service. You know, when it began, it was a desk at the office of the Jesuits in Rome. And here we are today, trying to help the poor of the world. This year has certainly been full of great challenge and instability. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it also represents significant opportunities for JRS to serve, advocate, and accompany with and for refugees and displaced persons. We have not given up. For the JRS USA, when the US government funds were abruptly terminated in January, in light of our mission and our accompaniment model, we chose, you chose, not to close our programs, our advocacy, and our service. Thanks to a wonderful board and to our generous and loyal donors, many of whom are here tonight, we doubled down, making very difficult cuts to our programs and to our staff size. We chose to continue to partner with our international, regional, and country offices around the globe, including the Xavier Network, which also greatly support JRS. There are many reasons for our decision to remain steadfast in our commitment and actions. But I think our faith is number one. Last month, I had the privilege of joining our leadership of JRS International Office and my fellow regional directors during a meeting in Lebanon. There we had the opportunity to visit our JRS Laundry country office programs. Bombs fell quite close to our Jesuit retreat meeting site, and drones fell out of sight but buzzed lazily above us while in Beirut. Our programs served Syrian refugees as well as migrants in crisis, including our own Lebanese and Syrian JRS staff members many of whom were displaced by the bombings in Lebanon following the terrible events of September 2024. As the Church has done for centuries, JRS Lebanon opened the doors of St. Joseph Jesuit Church. Those fleeing the bombs, including the JRS staff, were able to stay in safety and shelter. Father Dan Carew said, "Don't come to church, it's too dangerous." But when he got there, he found the church was overloaded and with people of every confession. Each JRS country office operates in the context appropriate for the culture and circumstances faced by the population whom they served. Yes? I was reading the wrong text.
Repetitio, repetitio.
The foundation of Jesuit education is repetition.
Right.
Well, thank you, Cindy. Oh, here it is. Here it says Leo. Well, that gives me a chance to say, Cindy, thank you for putting on a wonderful, wonderful evening. Hooray for Cindy. This was a wonderful evening, and I don't think I ever quite so badly repeated a test. Anyway, please join me in thanking my dear friend Lidia Bastianich for her generous hospitality. Some years ago, I was asked, "Do you think you could get Lidia to be on our board of directors?" And I said, well, A, she's the most generous woman in the world. Secondly, she's a refugee. And third, well, you saw what she's like tonight. And Lidia, I have a small token of appreciation for JRS, from JRS, for this evening and for your dedication as a JRS board member. Lidia, if you'd come up. These are hand-dipped chocolates from Chocolat Le Chevalier, a Syrian father-son refugee-owned business in Montreal. Riyadh and his son George began chocolate making in Syria and further protected their skills in Lebanon after fleeing the Syrian civil war. JRS welcomed Riyadh's family to Canada in 2022, where they have begun a small chocolatier business. I hope you enjoyed them as much as we have enjoyed our time together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Not enough for everybody.
Just your family.
Thank you.
Lydia has provided some delicious swag, also in your gift bags, including one of her cookbooks. She will sign them after we conclude for those who wish a personalized copy. Now I have to take a look and see if I'm supposed to say what comes next.
Maybe a benediction.
I used to do this a lot, you know? Finally, on a more serious note, these chocolates represent one story of resilience and the entrepreneurial spirit refugees and immigrants bring to their new countries. Not problem people, prospect people, people of great dignity and ability. The United States has traditionally been a global leader in humanitarian assistance and providing durable solutions for refugees. The United States has resettled more than 3.9 million refugees since 1980, including JRS USA board members John Thon Majok and our dear Lidia, who was resettled with her family under the Displaced Persons Act. Since 1991, the United States has also granted asylum to more than 768,000 persons, and the United States has historically been the most generous company in refugee assistance. Mr. Secretary General, help us to lead the world in being one human community. This is what God made us for. Thank you, folks, for being here.